Hello. I decided after seeing a lot of things on Facebook this week and hearing of some local tragedies to make this video. I'm not so in favor of videoing my face because it's distracting and it just feels way too vulnerable, but I still felt like that I needed to share my story. Not my whole story, but a chapter of it that might help somebody. So this week I've seen a lot about the Methodist Church voting to exclude the LGBTQ, whatever other letters have been added, to exclude them from the church. And, I mean, it's not surprising, but at the same time, I've also this week heard of 2 suicides in our local LGBTQ community. And so that's what made me want to speak out and share, like I said, a chapter from my story. So to give you a little background of where it all started, I was in my 20s probably, and really struggling with life, with depression and anxiety. I had panic attacks, had a history of alcohol and drug use. I just had a lot of stuff going on, and was suicidal and considered taking my life. But having gone to church when I was younger and, obviously living in an area where most people go to church, I decided to go to church and just kind of see what that was about again and see if I could find some kind of solace there. And really decided in one moment, instead of ending my life, I would choose to have faith, and give my life to whatever God was or whoever God was, and, say, it's yours if you want to do something with it. I don't know what else to do, but if you don't, I'm out of here, kind of thing. And so I went to church, and in the church that I went to, it was customary to go down, walk the aisle, and get saved and baptized and all of that. So I did all of that. And I can say my life dramatically changed. I had a lot of relief from anxiety and from depression. Not completely. I did struggle with anxiety for a while, but it definitely wasn't to the extent that it was beforehand. The church members rallied around me. I developed a lot of really close friendships, really supportive friendships. I was surrounded by a lot of really supportive women that mentored me, and I really felt cared and loved for and supported. And I immersed myself in church and in that culture. I was in the doors every time they opened. I was there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I went to small groups. I taught Sunday school. I read my Bible every day, and I just drenched myself in it. I was one of those Christians that I could literally just speak to you in Scripture. I mean, anything you had to say, I could quote Scripture as my response, And I was one that, I stood where most of their morals, I agreed with their morals on things such as like being pro-life and being, there's all the thou shalt nots, I was on board with all of that. And I went into ministry as my work, and it was my mission that I needed to save the souls of the world and all the lost souls. And when I saw gay people, I I felt that they were the most lost of all, because I felt like that they were as far away as you can get from who God made them to be. And true, I had heard some of their stories of different things that happened in their life that maybe had made them that way, and I had compassion, but I just believed what the Bible said, and I stood by that, and I just wanted their souls to be saved. My heart was in a good place. What I did was very damaging to them. Fast forward a bit, decided to go to college late in life, and meanwhile I had some relationships with men. I had been engaged, and then I'd had a few different boyfriends, and pretty much all of my life I knew that I wasn't like my friends. I didn't ever get boy crazy, I could kind of care less. I didn't really get really hung up on my boyfriends. I didn't have to be with them 24/7. I'd rather be with my friends. I just didn't get crazy in love like my friends would get. But I thought, well, maybe I'm just independent, And then as I was an adult in my relationships, I wanted to be like a godly woman in my relationships. But I just didn't love the people that I was in a relationship with. I just didn't love them the way that they loved me. And I just couldn't make myself be that way with them. I tried. I wanted to, have a godly marriage and have children and do all of that and have the picture perfect life. But there was just something missing in me. And so I decided, after hurting several different guys because I couldn't be what they wanted me to be, I decided to just stop dating, because I knew it was wrong to continue to break hearts, and to just focus on ministry. And so I did that. Well, I went to college then, and there were just different things happening in my life that kind of made me start questioning whether or not it wasn't that I couldn't love men. It was that I was more attracted to women. And I was taking a college course in human sexuality, and had learned a lot about homosexuality and different things. And they had a group from the local LGBTQ community at the college come in and talk to us one day. And there was a girl there that talked about her background in the church, and, her coming out and how she resolved that. And I ended up meeting her, and I just kind of poured my heart out to her. And long story short, wasn't long that I ended up coming out to myself only, and dated this girl. And I realized that I wasn't broken, and there wasn't something missing, and that I was able to love like I saw my friends loving, and I was able to be in a relationship and be crazy about a person like I saw my friends. It was just that I could only be that way with women. And so my whole world kind of crumbled around me, because my faith had saved me. Being a Christian had literally saved my life. And I knew what the Bible said. I knew that I could not go to church and be this person. I knew that I would not be accepted. I came out to some Christian friends, and a couple of them did try to be supportive, but it was supportive with an agenda. We love you, please talk to me. But it was kind of like, we'll help you through this and back to where you're supposed to be. This isn't God's will for your life, and we'll be supportive and we'll help you. And no one really just accepted me, because, that's just wasn't what the Bible said. And so, if you try to open yourself up to anything that may go against Scripture, then you're following the devil or turning your back on God. So I slowly lost my Christian friends, and I wrestled day and night with myself, because I felt like I could not both be a Christian and be gay. I had to choose one or the other. And I started, trying to pray the gay away, basically. And that never worked. So I realized, well, I can't change. Now that I know this about myself, I know that I can't change it. This is who I've been my whole life. So do I either just live a life of being gay, but not being in a relationship, and, try to stay in church and be a Christian, or do I live as who I am? And so at that point, I really loved the person that I was with, and I loved being able to love and being able to experience those things that I had never experienced before. And so I tried to turn my back on my faith. I just said, I can't change who I am, but I can change my beliefs, as far as I can change my religious practice, but I cannot change who I am. And I tried to do that, and, a lot of things happened in my life. I went through a few relationships that were really difficult, and had some great losses, and just different things, to where I ended up kind of hitting bottom, and I turned back to God anyways, because what I realized is that I thought I could choose to just stop believing, but I couldn't. It was a really strange thing. Like, the belief was in me as much as me being gay was in me, and I couldn't change it. It was like God. I was a part of God, whether I wanted to be or not. And so I started praying again, and it was very difficult for a long time to not feel just loads of guilt and shame. I said I used to have a Southern Baptist preacher on my shoulder that, shamed me 24/7. But I believed that maybe I could find, for some reason I felt God listening to me anyway. And I just kept praying. And I just kept spending quiet times alone, even though I could not reconcile what I had grown up learning in the church. I couldn't reconcile that with who I was as a gay person. But I still somehow felt God loved me, even though I couldn't, there was nothing from the church that I could use to prove that to myself. I just knew it, and it was my experience. And one day I was sitting and meditating and having my prayer time. I had gotten to a place where I spent most of my prayer time in the quiet, just listening. And I was having a particularly rough day, and I just got quiet, and I kind of went back to a time when I was a child, and I felt really free and really loved, and I was imagining being at my grandmother's house, which was some of my best memories. And I just, in my mind, I kind of walked around our house and walked around the yard, and I felt what it felt like to be me just as an innocent child. And something about that connected me to the love of God in a way that I have never experienced before. And in that moment, I realized the truth that spoke the loudest to me was that I was loved and I was accepted the second my eyes opened that morning. Before I did anything, said anything, chose anything, I was already as loved and as accepted as I could be. That there was nothing that I could do to be less loved, and there was nothing that I could do to be more loved. That the love was there before I even existed, and it somehow was all-encompassing, and there was nothing I could do. And that is actually, you can use scripture for that, to explain that, where, there's nowhere that you can go. God's love is always there, and I experienced that in that moment. And that's what I tell people a lot who have been hurt by the church and can't find a way. They're so angry and hurt by things. And I just tell them, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. don't throw God out with the church. Keep seeking God. Keep seeking love, and you will, I promise you will find it. And you will find that you are loved no matter what the church has told you or no matter what they have chosen. And I'm not speaking against the church. I am speaking for love. The church is made up of people who are doing the best they can with what they have and what they know. And when people do know better, they do better. And what I'm telling you is that you are still loved no matter what the church decides to do. And it's heartbreaking to me because I feel like the church should be a place of respite and a place of safety and love and inclusion and help and comfort, and should stand up for the marginalized. And whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. That's what Jesus said. And I think that goes to the church. That goes for the church. Church, whatever you do to the least of these, you do to Jesus. And I just wish they could get that, but they may not. And you don't have to go. You don't have to go to church if you don't want to. I don't go to church. I go to a compline service once a month, just because I find it very peaceful and I enjoy that. But church to me, I'm in church. I'm sitting here in church right now, sitting in my living room in my chair, surrounded by my dogs, speaking on this video, because there's nowhere. This whole earth is the church of God, right? The whole universe is the church of God. My body holds the Spirit of God. How can anything exist outside of God if you believe in God? And I'm really speaking to those who do, because I have atheist friends and friends that have different beliefs, and so I respect your beliefs and would totally listen to your reasoning. But right now, I'm just speaking to someone who might be in the same position I was in and might have had the same background that I had. And I'm just saying that if you have that foundation of faith and you think that you've been kicked out, that you're somehow excluded from the love of God because of who you are, I'm telling you that it's impossible. Nothing can exist outside of God's love. God is love. You are a part or particle of God. That's a part of one of my favorite poems. And you are loved beyond measure because that's who God is. And I'm sorry that it's not who people are. I mean, it's not who I am all the time. It's who I strive to be, because it is who we are. Let me take that back. I believe it is who we are. Our true selves, that we are, that's who we are. But, we have so much conditioning and so many masks that we put on and so much trauma that we go through and different issues that we develop and all of this stuff to protect ourselves or to portray a certain image, and we lose sight of who we really are. But I believe at the basis of all of us that we are loved because we are part of God, and we come from God and we go back to God. And that's what I have found in my life, and it's been very difficult to overcome some of the things that I was taught to believe, that I would, beliefs of just never quite measuring up, never quite doing enough, never quite being enough, constantly repenting, constantly making sure, that I was saved, and if I got hit by a bus, I wouldn't go to hell, constantly just guilt and shame and never enoughness. And that's not the truth. And so I just want to speak to those in the community that feel that maybe their families, their churches, their families, their friends have told them that they're not acceptable the way they are. And it's tricky because sometimes the church will tell you that you're accepted just the way you are. But there's always a but there. There's an agenda to make you a little better, to make you a little more acceptable to them. And the truth is that you are acceptable just the way you are. You are loved just the way you are. And I encourage you to seek that with everything that you have. To not give up on, if you have faith, to not give up on seeking what the truth is. To sit with yourself in quiet and listen to your heart. Get out of your head and everything that's been screamed at you or preached from a pulpit while someone's slamming their fist on it or threatening you with hell and damnation or calling you perverts. I went to a church that called homosexuals perverts. And so get out of your head. Let those voices come and go and sink into your heart. And remember who you are and whose you are. And there's nothing that can separate you from that love. And there's nothing that can change how much you are loved and wanted and accepted for the person that you are. So, I guess I'm posting this video. I don't know. I feel kind of weird about it. It's hard to be vulnerable and share bits and pieces of my story. I've been told that I should often, but it's kind of like taking your guts out and passing them around for everyone to judge and poke and look at, and it feels so terrifying. But I just thought this was an important enough thing to talk about. I think I'll probably post some sort of email or contact information. Yeah, so I don't really know how to end this other than to just end it. And to say not to give up, and not to give up on yourself, and not to listen to anyone who tells you that something's wrong with you and that you should be excluded because you don't measure up to some standard. And to know that you are. I don't know how you can any better way to glorify your maker, your creator, than to be exactly who you are. So I will leave it with that.